Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, thank you all for tuning in to Letha's Real Talk. I am Letha. Tonight we have Justin with us, Miss Fredrica. Her presence is here, but however, she's thank you all for tuning in. Hold on. Letha's Real Pause. Talk. That should be happening. Hold on. Justin with us, Miss Fredrica. Her presence. I'm gonna have to stop something. Hold on. However, she's. Okay. I'm gonna take that down. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
The technical difficulties, but we learn. So thank you for tuning in to Letha's Real Talk. I am
Wait,
Letha.
recording?
We're recording.
Uh,
Yeah, we're recording. Yeah, we're recording. That was YouTube messing up, so that'll get edited out. I just closed out of it.
okay.
Yes. So thank you for tuning in to Letha's Real Talk. I am Letha. Tonight we have our special guest that's been joining us as often as he can, author Justin Wilson. Our co-host, Miss Fredrica Sandifer, she is here. Her presence is here. However, she is here just in her presence, and we thank her so much for being here. But however, tonight's topic was given to us by Miss Fredrica, and our topic tonight is we're going to be healing from past trauma as we work on building better relationships. I think that's a very good topic. So before we dive all the way into it, I did get an AI overview, if that's okay with other ones, if that's okay with everybody. But it says it can significantly impact relationships in various ways. One thing trauma can do in a present relationship, it can cause people to have trust issues. A lot of trauma survivors, they struggle with the trust of others because they have a fear of betrayal and they don't want to be abandoned. This can lead to difficulty in forming intimate or close relationships. It also speaks about their emotional regulations. Trauma can make it challenging to regulate emotions, leading to outbursts of anger, anxiety, or withdrawal. This can strain relationships and make it difficult to communicate effectively. There are a lot of negative beliefs and perceptions. Trauma can create negative beliefs about oneself, others, and relationships. These beliefs can influence how survivors interact with their partners, making them more likely to interpret actions as threatening or harmful. Trauma can cause people to want to avoid intimacy. Some survivors avoid intimacy altogether out of fear of being hurt again. This also can lead to isolation and difficulty forming meaningful connections. Hypervigilance. Trauma survivors can be hypervigilant, constantly scanning for potential threats. This can make them overly cautious and suspicious in relationships. We spoke about difficulty in communication. It may make you not want to communicate openly or honestly with your partners. It may make it hard for you to express your feelings or even disclose your experiences. It can impact parenting. Trauma can also affect parenting styles. Survivors may struggle to provide a safe and nurturing environment for their children if they are still processing their own resolved trauma. It's important to note that the impact of trauma on relationship varies widely depending on the individual, the nature of the trauma, and the support system available. With appropriate therapy and support, trauma survivors can learn to manage their symptoms and build healthy and fulfilling relationships. And once again, I do want to give credit to the author. So I got this from Google AI, okay? AI overview, because we don't want to be taking information from anywhere and truly not giving credit what credit is due. In reading that, because I didn't even read everything. So I literally had no idea that it could affect in these type of manners. I do think a lot of us deal with some form of trauma. I'm not here to say that one person's trauma is more severe than the other, because I don't like putting labels or staples on what I think is more severe. But I have noticed over the years, just in people I know very well, people that's close to me, even just reading about other people, and even just recently reading this, trauma can truly take a toll to the point to where it- you can have a vision to want something in a relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's a friendship, whether it's an associateship. And I say these things because everything is not romantically light. However, we tend to deem most relationships, when we're talking about hurt and we're talking about pain, we tend to deem it on an intimate level. But I think sometimes we do need to understand that trauma in generally can affect any type of relationship. It can affect workships. It can affect if you're part of organizations. It can trauma can affect the person so far to a point that they are just not trusting to other people, or they don't know how to per se um channel their emotions, as this just say, as I literally just read. And I think it's hard to tap into people that truly have trauma issues. Reading this kind of makes me wonder, there may be more people out here who may have been traumatized than than that I may even know. Like I say, I got my own personal trauma that I deal with. One of the biggest things that I've dealt with, and it is the death of my mom, and I was young, but it's also the way that it occurred. And it's for me, it's also after. So I never forget, it was like Friday the 13th. I brought home another disciplinary slip. So once again, I was in trouble again. October the 13th, 1995, and then October the 14th, that Saturday, boom, she was gone. It happened just like that. We was in the car with her, me and my younger sister. So, to this day, I don't, for me personally, I'm just not getting where I can talk a little bit better about physical death at the age of what, 47, like before my 47th birthday at 46. I got a little bit more comfortable talking about things within the past year or two. But I still struggle with the way with when it happened, because of what happened prior to, because I tend to struggle with, oh my gosh, I got in trouble again. She was upset with me again. And this is how she, transitioned out of here. And then sometimes, even though I made it past my mom's age, my children are all past the age of 17, I can find myself projecting some of their energy on them. Like, sometimes I get frustrated. I'm like, hey, my mama wasn't here. Hey, you never know. Hey, I did this, and the next day, boom, it wasn't nothing I could prevent, and not realizing that sometimes you can project that on other people, and it's not an intentional thing. It's just in turn, not that anybody gets a pass, right? But sometimes we tend to project all of those things that we struggle with, or some of those things that we struggle with, or some of those things that we don't want to deal with. We tend to push those things on other people. Justin, what is your take?
Um, I think it's important to define trauma, um, so that we are all in alignment on what we're talking about. Um, I looked the definition up. It said psychological trauma Says this type of trauma results from events or experiences that are emotionally painful and leave a lasting impact on a person's mental and emotional functioning. And I think, like you said, life presents us with traumatic experiences. Um, it's not whether or not you've had a traumatic experience, it's how you cope with said experience that will affect your day-to-day life or a person's day-to-day life. Um, and I think it's important to know those things that trigger you, those things that stir up your emotions and put you in a place where it's hard to function in a daily experience or a day-to-day experience or a real life experience. So I think that once we understand that, hey, this thing that I'm doing that I have always identified as just being me is problematic for me. It's destroying all kinds of relationships, family, friends, work, or other day-to-day life tasks. This thing that I've accepted as me is something I need to really work on. And then at that point, I think it's important to do the work, see a therapist, and learn from somebody who understands that type of trauma and can help you understand it and process your way through it. I don't think we get to a place where you're no longer experiencing trauma. I think we get an understanding of it and then we learn how to cope with it. And some people can cope with it so well it looks like they're no longer dealing with it. My experience is that I can cope with some things a lot better than I have in times past.
Mm.
So yeah, that's what I would say about it. I think it's very important to learn the triggers, learn the things that put you in a space where you're uncomfortable with yourself, and acknowledge, hey, this is something I need to work on. I think that's super important for a relationship because the reality is whether we are getting the work done or not, you're going to go into a relationship with your past. I am a strong believer that whether we've repented of it or not, whether we've healed from it or not, we have had certain experiences in life and we take all of life experiences into everything we do. How it affects us is going to vary depending on where you're at in the healing process, but you take that experience into everything we do. We take those experiences into absolutely everything we do. And as we build and become more emotionally stable and emotionally intelligent, we can function in life at that level, whatever that level is, we'll function at that level. And it can make life a lot easier to deal with, and it can make other people's lives, it can make you a contributor to the healing of life a lot better.
One thing I've noticed with some people, I'm not gonna say most, with a handful of people, some people don't want to deal. Some people they don't want to deal, they don't want to resurface things. So I remember there was a situation, this was a couple of years ago, and I was speaking to a young lady about something. And she wanted to like have this conversation with other people about things that she was dealing with. Like she wanted to have a conversation. And in that moment, I found myself telling her, but you want the conversation. You can't make people force you to do something that you want to sit down and you want them to listen to you about, and you're not willing to take back. So if you just want to get out what you want to say and you just need people to hear you, sometimes, and I'm saying sometimes, even though what I was telling her, even though for her that may be what she needed in that moment, there's nothing wrong with that. But for some people, that is not what that's just not how everybody deals with things, you know. And you said something, Fredrica has hit on it. This AI comparison mentioned it. And so it's like, hey, it mentions about the therapy part. And what I noticed with some people, true enough, this may be something that you have dealt with way back then and you want to address this person or these people, but they're still not the therapist.
Right.
So how is taking, and I'm not saying nobody is wrong in the matter, that's not what I'm saying. But what people sometimes don't realize is you want to deal with things head on sometimes. And you want to have these conversations. Well, you have to be ready for whatever is going to be said back. And then a lot of the times when people don't hear those I'm sorry's or those whatever, when people don't hear what they have convinced in their head that they need to hear at those moments, sometimes that further sets them off. And you can suggest therapy sometimes to people, and people still don't want the therapy. Like, how do people, and I know none of us can answer for all people, but it is concerning that if you did something I don't like, I'd rather for me and you and that very traumatized me, I want to have this conversation with you and there's nothing wrong and you're willing to let me speak. And then if I don't get a response back to you from you that I'm looking for, then I'm further set off. Yet and still I'm not even making the consideration that maybe I need to deal as an individual and go seek some some type of help. And I see more and more people are getting help. I mean, I've had to have some little sessions on some things myself. You know, I know people that's getting therapy more often on a regular basis, and I can tell difference in them just for the better. Literally, like it's like a common point. And I've also noticed that some people don't want to accept the fact that it's okay. And what you say in that space is a safe space. So you don't have anyone critiquing you. You don't have anyone judging you. And those sessions are not for everything, the world around you that traumatized you. Those sessions are really for yourself as an individual. But we want to go have these relationships, not per se intimate. Um, I mean, just think about somebody who may have been beat by the police. That's a traumatic event. It is hard to be trusting. Or someone that may have went to a doctor's office and some inappropriate things took place. That's a traumatic moment. And sometimes people still don't want to get that additional help. So what do you think, or what is your insight to try to at least suggest it to people, if nothing else, to just try to deal with it as an individual first? I'm not saying first, but at least try to deal with it individually, especially when you're not getting back what you're looking for while you're trying to deal with whatever your hurt and pain is from other people.
Um, so what I would say is for me going into therapy, By the time I got into the space that I was ready to go and sit down with a therapist, it wasn't about anybody else. I find that at this point to be helpful because the truth is whatever someone did to traumatize you, it's probably not affecting them the same way it affects you. And that's what we have to deal with, how it affects me as an individual. Sometimes it is difficult to move past it without closure from the other person, but there are there are ways to move past it. There's a practice in therapy called a burn note, where you write a letter to the person who victimized you and you pour it out. You pour it out as clear as you can, say everything that you want to say. And then because you can't give it to that person, symbolic of letting it go, you burn the note. Now, does that mean you're actually not going to have to think about this stuff anymore? No. But what you're doing is taking back your power. You're taking back ownership of self in that particular arena or area of your life. And you're not allowing whatever happened to continue to dominate your mind space and affect you. And then you have to do the work of realizing that the power that this situation has over you, you give it. And a therapist helps you process your way through that and helps you come to that conclusion where you're strong enough to handle said situation, whether that person acknowledges or not. Because I think sometimes we go into a situation where we want to have a conversation with somebody, but we kind of predetermine I'm going to say this and they're going to say that. And I'm going to say this and they're going to say that. And they going to feel me. And if they don't respond like that, they're not sorry. And the reality is that they don't, I'm not saying the victimizers are right for not feeling it, but they're on the other side of the victimization. They do not experience and feel it the same way as the victim in most cases. You know, sometimes God allows them to have experiences that brings them to a place where they realize they're wrong and they can apologize and God be glorified for that. And may who uh the person who deals with it, you know, they can grow past that and they can say I apologize and they can acknowledge their wrong and then you can move past it. Until then, you know, what if that person never gets there? Then your freedom from that situation, we don't want to have our freedom from the situation be contingent on somebody else's, how somebody else moves. And so therapy for me has allowed me to, I'm okay if I never get an apology. I still forgive. I let go and release this thing from my life despite the battle that comes with it. Because therapy didn't remove what happened, it didn't make me forget what happened. It just gave me the energy and the information needed to when that thing starts to grab a hold of me and affect my day-to-day life, my present day life, I put it back there where it belongs. That's in the past. No, I'm not going to allow this person to continue to have control over my life when they're not even thinking about me in theirs. They're not even considering me. They're going on with their life. have forgiven themselves. They probably asked God for forgiveness, or they just don't care. And I'm still here dealing with it. And that's what I think therapy helps a person come to the place where you deal with it. Whether they want to or not, I'm dealing with it. I forgive them. You can decide whether or not you want to give that person access to you or
Mm.
not. But if you do, good. And if you don't, good. It's just about, like you said, you got to create boundaries. And the boundaries that you have are not the boundaries nobody else should cross of yours. Those are the boundaries that you shouldn't cross within yourself. So if you know something is going to trigger you, no matter who does it, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not getting involved with that because I know it's going to take me to a place that I don't want to be. And that's that. No
Right.
apologies, no explanation. That's that. And that's where I believe so many people could benefit from therapy, uh, acknowledging that this is where I am, acknowledge that this thing has me and I want to be free of it. And then, you get with a therapist and they help you do the work.
Mm.
They teach you how to process, they teach you how to elevate your emotions and get control of them. And then again, you don't get, I'm not aware of anybody that gets to the place where you no longer experience the emotion. It's just now instead of going off on everybody or becoming a recluse or an introvert, you can still function within your day-to-day life. You can have the emotion rise up and you can process it in a way where you can still continue to live your day-to-day life.
Right.
And I think it's important for us to share that type of information so that the people going into therapy know what others have experienced. I'm not saying they're going to experience the same thing, but hey, this is what I experienced. This is how it benefited me.
Mm.
Maybe they'll go in there and get the same benefit. Maybe they'll go in there and get a greater benefit. Maybe the talk therapy or that particular therapist is not for them and they need to go to another one. That's another
Mm.
thing people should know. When you're going after a therapist, you don't have to settle for the first therapist. Your therapeutic relationship should be like any other relationship. Two people who have a chemistry and they can work together for the same goal. You know what I'm saying? Because the reality is your relationship with your therapist is going to be intimate. It's not going to be sexual, but it is going to be intimate
Yeah.
because you're going to let this person into spaces you don't let other people in. And they can't go have a conversation about you. They don't have a bias because they don't know you. They're simply listening to you and your experiences. And I wanted a therapist and specifically asked for a therapist who would call me on my crap.
Okay.
I want somebody to tell me, hey, I don't believe that.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like I specifically asked for that. And if you don't ask for that, the therapist probably won't give it to you. But I wanted to learn accountability and not put everything on everybody else. And so, yeah, I think that's important to understand when you are trying to heal from trauma is that there's a part in the trauma that that person plays, but then there's also a part for me that I played because what happened I didn't do to myself. I did hold on to it for 30 years. So I had to own that and I had to apologize to me and forgive me and tell myself what I did wrong and promise myself that I wouldn't allow myself to do that to me ever again. And now I got to hold myself accountable so that when I experience something that I know is not showing love to self,
Mhm.
I have to, hey, No, you can't do that to you. You can't, you can't let somebody talk to you like that. You can't let somebody treat you like that. Uh, Trauma can make a person conflict avoidant. And sometimes addressing conflict, I'm not saying get in a fight or anything like, but addressing conflict and establishing that, hey, you don't have to respect me. That's your prerogative. But if you don't, we go no further. This is the last word you will ever hear from me until you can decide something different. And we just have to be okay with that. And you don't even have to say that to the person. You can tell yourself, I'm just not talking to them no more. You got to hold on to it.
Mhm.
And so it's important to, I think it's important to get with somebody who can teach you how to process and become emotionally intelligent within yourself, and then help you also to see yourself so that you know when you're the one that's being the problem.
Yes.
So yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Another thing, in general, by default, a lot of people, no matter what people go through, people they seek, they want companionship, they want somebody there, whether they been through a lot of trauma or not. People want companionship, so a lot of the times people tend to get into these intimate relationships with other people, and they haven't dealt with how to deal with their emotions, and sometimes they carry that in those relationships. And sometimes what people don't understand, you take your situation, and I know we all got issues, but you project that on somebody else, on somebody that has nothing to do with any of that. You know, that can be traumatizing for that other person as well. So, my concern is if I don't know how to deal, and I may be longing for whatever, it's still not fair for me to deal with somebody and then project all this, because all it takes is one time for a person to get upset, like really upset. All it takes is one time. Something go their way, don't go their way, anything. People, you know, sometimes people they do. They make it just instantly in their moment, sometimes about them. But now you got people that are getting involved in these intimate relationships with people that have no knowledge of anything about nothing they've been through. And I'm a firm believer, if you have truly dealt with your stuff, everything may not always be for everybody else. But if you ain't dealt with your stuff and you go take part or go whatever with somebody else, they may need to know you got some issues. And I know that can be a turnoff for a lot of people, but to me, it's a bigger turnoff if you have not made people aware that you're dealing with yourself, or you got a few things going on, and just all of a sudden these blow ups and these outbursts and stuff happen, and everybody reacts different. Some people may hoop and holler, some people may like to get violent, some people may like to throw stuff, some people may like to get in their car and drive off and don't talk to nobody for 24 hours. You know, and it's kind of like these cycles sometimes just keep happening and happening. So now you got sometimes people dealing with people who haven't dealt with their stuff, who ain't took time to even try to figure out how to deal with their stuff. Now you done got somebody else involved, and now you're creating these traumatic events for them, So not only are you dealing with your stuff, you projected this on somebody else, and that could cause the next person you know, not to want to deal. And you're emphasizing and you're encouraging people, to deal with self first. I've learned from experience, that go for me too. Sometimes self can be the hardest thing to deal with.
Oh no, it's absolutely. It's that's what I for my experience in therapy is learning that there is a level of input in my life that I have. And because I am with me more than absolutely anybody else, most of what is going on comes from me. Even if it's me accepting what somebody else does, it's me. And going into that and not looking at that as a weakness or a flaw, but looking at it as something to be addressed
Mm-hmm.
is was beneficial for me because not acknowledging where I was lacking at wasn't going to help me not lack.
Mm-hmm.
Going into the same situation over and over again was a result of not addressing the issue. It now does it require some isolation? Yeah. For some people it's years, for some people it's months. But it's still something that is something that is needed. And like I say, you learn how to deal with self. And the thing about I never forget when I got into the healing space and I started being around healed people, I was able to identify the way healed people address things and the way they conversate, the way the conversations went, the way how in the middle of the conversation they would say, "Oh, you know what? Let me give me a second," and they would walk away and have a conversation with self, and then come back and be able to address it. And I wanted that. I think
Mm-hmm.
so many times the problem is that we have toxic influences and we're around toxic people and we identify whether we say we identify or not with these people, we do because we are toxic. We have unaddressed traumas. And that's all being toxic is you have things in you that are unaddressed. And the problem is not that you have things unaddressed. The problem is when you're not willing to address them.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a submission to the process that is required for anybody who is considering being better than they are at any given moment. And again, I always try to be open and honest and transparent about therapy is that it is a process. It is going to require some honesty about some things about yourself that you don't even like to have a conversation with yourself about. But verbalizing it and saying out loud is very therapeutic. It's very helpful to do that. I always encourage journaling because maybe you can't say it out loud, but if you write it down and read it to yourself, at least you can be loud in your own mind listening to the thoughts that you wrote down. And again, I would do that with a therapist because, again, I'm not a therapist, no way, shape, or form. But after prayer, after reading the word, after hearing the preacher preach the word, going and sitting down with a therapist in conjunction with all of that other stuff is what helped me to be in a better space. I feel that I'm in a better space. I feel that my boundaries are getting stronger. I'm not there yet. There are
Mm-hmm.
still things that I need to work on to get better, and I think other people should consider that part too. Um, but going through a full process is it was helpful to me. It was helpful to me. I think, and I think it would. I think it's a benefit to anybody to be involved with a full process and understand that there's a part of your therapy that you don't share. You may not be in a space to ever share with anybody. It is a space where the confidentiality clause between you and your therapist is going to be super strong. And it's not, again, your therapist could lose their living talking about something you tell them. So they ain't interested in sharing that with nobody.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
And it's for me, it's been very beneficial. I encourage it for everybody. It is not the same thing as talking to a God sent, divinely uh spiritualized leader. It's not the same thing as talking to a good friend. It's not the same thing as talking to the people, a life coach that gives the greatest advice in the world. There's a totally different process to it. And I
Mm.
think that that's the part that people need to be involved with. And you should, to me, I wanted a therapist that would dig and ask questions. And it's been, you read the book. Um,
Mhm.
that book was birthed in seeing a therapist. I'm not ashamed of the things that I've been through, the things that I put myself through, because I saw a therapist. I shared that stuff not so people can see me, but so that people can see that, hey, you can tell stories about yourself that you didn't want other people to know and still survive it and move on with your life. And so when somebody come talking to you, it's, man, you just don't understand. You ain't never experienced. Not only do I understand, you can take a look in this book and see how I dealt with it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the important thing, is to have people understand what process they're about to go through when they get into, and then be exposed to healed and healing people so that you have an idea of what you want to look like. I like I said, when I got around healed people and I started having these conversations, while I was still in that dark space, I seen people who had crossed that path already, and I wanted that. I've always loved people who said what was on their mind, even if it was rude and obnoxious and mean. I've loved people like that, right?
Mhm.
When I dealt with healed people, when I started dealing with healed people, I realized you didn't have to be rude, obnoxious, and mean. Even saying whatever comes to your mind and talking to people any kind of way could be a sign of trauma.
Mhm.
But you can be respectful, you can tell people where you are, and you can stand on business about it. And you don't have to cause a fight or anything like that.
Mm. You know, you mentioned just briefly about the different spaces when it comes to the therapy
Right.
and how it's truly not the same. And I have found myself, you know, because I've had some, and I haven't verbalized it as well as you have, but you know, I have been known to tell people, um, I have been known to tell people, you need to go talk to somebody you don't know that don't know you. Like your preacher know you, whoever know you. It's hard to even deal with yourself talking to people you know.
Right.
That's a hard that's a hard situation, dealing with people that you know, because at the end of the day, no matter what, those are our those are our places of comfort and comfortability for some people. I tell anybody I put myself at the top of any list. I do. I put myself at the top of any list. But a lot of the times comfortability matters for a lot of people. I'm not saying it's important. It's just it's just that comfort zone to where you can just it's almost like they're holding your hand in a different level versus I know with therapy your hand is being held, but even though your hand is held, you're still going to be pushed into, you know, dealing with some other things. I can't remember. This was some years ago. And we had this wonderful preacher and his wife. They about my age, few years older. And during this time, you know, I felt led, I felt called. Well, I've been feeling led and called my whole life. So I'm not saying that went away. That's not what I'm saying. And so I decided in those moments I wanted to move a little further. I felt led in those moments to move a little further. And so I went and I talked to them, and really good people. But there was some things I had to share with them because I knew, because of the um I'm trying to say it right without saying the wrong thing. I knew because of the process that I had to go through that is, you don't want people who've been, you just need people, you need, like, I, at that point I didn't have a choice. And I can remember in the moment that I had talked to the wife and I told the wife, and she was so good to me. Right before I went in to, sit before the committee, and she didn't come from an angle as if she personally knew me, even though she did. She came from the angle as like a therapist in that moment. And then in that moment, the little bit that I had opened up, I felt comfortable just opening up just a little bit more. You get what I'm saying? And and it does make a difference because when people are professional people, regardless of how I may want to look at it, or somebody else, and they don't know who you are, they're getting to know you. They're getting to analyze you. They're getting to allow you to, they're really trying to regain trust in those moments. That's what therapists do. The main thing is to make sure they got your trust at the end of the day. They got your trust, then some therapy can truly happen. Because you have to feel comfortable with people, no matter who they are. You have to feel really comfortable to say certain things, unless you just got to get some stuff off your chest in the moment. And so people have gotten so used to this level of comfortability, though, the level of comfort, that you see yourself steady struggling. What you're doing is not working. What is it going to hurt to try something different that don't involve nobody but you and that person you sitting in front of? What's the worst that could happen? And that is a concern because so many people are struggling, young, old. It don't matter. People are truly struggling, and people don't know how to cope. People don't know how to deal. People don't know how to express their emotions. You got people good and grown, and they throwing. I mean, good and grown. I mean, good and grown, grown. I ain't talking about nobody in their 20s. You got grown people throwing two-year-old temper tantrum fits. Like as if somebody took their candy or something, or their pacifier away. And these some of these people highly intelligent, like everything is not on an intelligence level. It's more on a coping and dealing with yourself level. And regardless of the hurt, in my most humble opinion, regardless of the pain, at some point, it is important to decide that you don't want to be in this place anymore. You don't want to be in a place to where you can't sleep at night. You don't be in a place to where you can't enjoy a funny movie because you getting all these, up in here. You don't want to be in a place to where you're just never not happy. Me and my sister was talking earlier, and I'm like, some people are just married to chaos and drama. I'm not saying intentionally, but sometimes that's all some people know. So just the thought of trying to even get them to do a slight shift can be beyond a challenge, can build a heavy resistance, let alone trying to encourage them the benefit of doing something that's going to later on benefit them versus allowing themselves to keep going under and under and under, and you're not making any progress. You're still not satisfied. You want to have a healthy relationship with whoever. You can't even have a healthy relationship with them because now you done dropped off all your, I don't want to call it garbage, but you done dropped off so much stuff on this other individual, and that could be somebody that person truly love. But because you haven't dealt with certain stuff, you can't move forward. And now, this now, and once again, like I said a few minutes ago, once this ongoing thing of just passing this trauma on and on and on, and my thing is at some point, enough people got to decide, I need to deal with myself. I tell people, just look in the mirror. Don't try to correct. Don't I shouldn't try to correct nobody here if I'm not willing to work on myself. And while I'm working on myself, you mentioned something about it's not your divine God sent, you mentioned that. And I'm glad you said that because I will say it like this. It's just like when people are new in Christ. You just started walking this walk, and now you're gonna go out here and correct every flaw in everybody else. You literally just started this. Like literally. This is you what? You just started. So now you want to pick up the phone, or you want to send text message, or you want to have your little moments to where you want to critique everything that other people need to change. And you haven't even dealt with yourself yet. You haven't even taken enough time between you and the Lord for yourself or your creator, whatever your beliefs may be, right? And now you you want to correct everything and everybody else, which is what we just stated, because it's easy to deal with everything and everybody else instead of dealing with yourself.
Absolutely. Think like I said, we've agreed on this. Um, like with anything else, if you continue to do the same thing you've been doing, you're going to continue to get the same things you've been getting. And if a person is looking for everyone else to change, it's a tall tale sign you probably need to change. If it's always everybody else, it's a tall tale sign that the issue is there's some issues within self that needs to be addressed. And again, anybody going into healing has to know, like if healing is needed so that you can stop hurting, no matter how much somebody else heals, it's not going to heal you. So it has to be about self. Even coming to Christ, you have to come to Christ and you have to acknowledge he is Lord. You have to acknowledge I'm a sinner. Like we have to acknowledge where we are, and then he helps us from that space. But if it's about everybody else and pointing out everybody else's flaws, you got some things you need to work on. We all got some things we need to work on. If it's about somebody else, we got some things we need to work on. Now, you do grow to the point where, listen, I ain't judging you for what you're doing, but where I'm walking at, that's not for me. And people are uncomfortable with hearing that kind of stuff because it makes them feel judged. But that ain't that ain't got nothing to do. Like that's just where I am, and I make it to, hey, this is where I am. There's certain things I'm, certain spaces I'm good with, and other spaces I'm not. So yeah, I think it's important for anybody that's looking for healing to go in and understanding I'm trying to heal. It ain't for everybody. And believe me, as you heal, it becomes really obvious when something is not going to work for you. And you, as your boundary, as you understand your boundaries and how to function within them, it get easier to not go and function somewhere where your boundaries are not respected.
Mhm.
It gets easier to say, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm
Mhm.
not getting involved with that. I'm not going to be a part of that conversation. That's just not this. That's not something I do. Not knocking you for doing it. It's just not something I do, and I'm okay with that. And so, for me, it's kind of showed me in a lot of other areas in life where, hey, I don't want to do that, and I'm not going to do it. Now, I may not talk reckless to people to tell them. It may be my silence that I'm telling people to listen to. I may not say anything, but I'm still not going to do something I don't want to do. And and that person is just gonna have to be okay with that. I'll accept the responsibility of doing and not doing what I want to do. Because when you are allowing trauma to control your life, if you've been traumatized by what somebody else has done, you spend your life doing what your mind tells you other people and other things want to do. And I'm just saying, I don't want to do that. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be involved with that. I'm not going to put myself in that situation. If you don't want to talk to me anymore, then you got to do what you got to do.
Mhm.
But I want to heal. I don't want to do, and that's the thing. As people go through healing, it changes your relationship dynamic because you don't. It's certain things you don't want to do. Like I don't go into a relationship saying what can I get. I go into a relationship saying what is it about this person that makes me want to give, and then I'll pay attention to what I get. And if it's not something that's going to be workable for me, then I'm gonna pull back how I give, and we'll have a conversation and say, hey, listen, I see, I feel like I see where you are. I see what you got going on, and it don't work for me. Not a bad person, but it's just not where I am, and it's not something that's going to work for me because we all have to be in an environment that allows us to thrive. And if we're not in that environment, obviously the environments we're trying to heal from is not allowing us to thrive. So once you heal, you're going to be looking for a different space and a different environment to function in. And we got to be okay with whatever comes with the things that we have to change to be able to be in that environment. And let me be very clear. For me, it's a work in progress. It's something that it's a process for me. I'm learning things and I have to force myself. Like one of the things about me is I hold on to things that don't feel good and not, that don't serve me for far too long because I'm like maybe I can love this situation into a better space. And I'm starting to tell myself I can't. And that's okay.
Mhm.
Because when you get with somebody who wants to love you and who is a person that is of service, I believe two givers can make something beautiful happen. I believe a giver with enough can make something happen with a taker, but two takers gonna point each other to where the giver's at. Because they takers, they neither one of them gonna give to each other, so they're gonna go to somebody that'll give to them. And people will take your emotion, they will take your heart, they will take your love, they will take your mind, they will take your kindness, they will take your conversation, they will take your empathy and your sympathy, they will take all of that stuff and give you a headache and a heartbreak and a mental strain and a bunch of trauma. As long as they're getting what they want, they're gonna continue to take. That's where we have to decide. Not only do I don't want to bleed on people that didn't cut me. I also want to not allow myself to be bled on by people I didn't cut. And so now I
Mm.
step back from that.
You need to repeat that again.
I tell you, we I don't not only do I not want to allow myself to be bled on by people I didn't cut, I don't want to bleed on people that didn't cut me.
Mm.
I don't want to do that. And again, that's something that when you acknowledge what the bleeding is, when I acknowledge that, hey, she didn't cheat on me, so why am I not trusting her? If she wants to just chill in bed and watch TV and not talk to me all the time, that's okay. I don't have to get mad. That don't mean she's dealing with somebody else. I'm gonna stay vigilant because we can't have that too much. But that's where I have to grab myself by the collar and say, yo, chill out. Go watch TV. Go write. Go do something of value. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't have to be tracking everything somebody's doing. You know what I'm saying? Or I have to tell myself, yo, listen, you letting yourself be taken advantage of. And it's not that person's fault that they're taking advantage of you anymore because you know you allow yourself to be taken advantage of. So when you get tired of it, do something about it because you have the tools, you've done the work, you know what the therapist said, you know you somebody that's worth being treated right. You gotta treat yourself. I heard something on Instagram one day that has stuck with me for about 2 years. A guy said, you gotta treat yourself like you're somebody you care about.
Wow.
And I have to go back to that video that I have saved frequently and look in the mirror and tell me you got to treat yourself like you're somebody you care about. Because if you saw somebody else putting up with the things that you're putting up with, you would tell them not to do it.
Mm.
So now you go look in the mirror and you tell you not to do it. You know what I'm saying? Trauma is self work, and as you do the self work, as you do the healing, you just keep people out of that space. We hear the phrase I gotta protect my peace. Oh yeah, yeah. I understand that way more than I ever have before. I see Moose saying trauma runs deep and it ain't for the weak.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, you gotta be willing to deal with self. Because once you're willing to deal with self, the second a red flag pop up, it's like, hmm, let me have a conversation. And if you try to have a conversation with somebody that's functioning in trauma, that's going to usually be unnecessarily difficult conversation. That's enough of a red flag to be like, you know what? I'm gonna let that go. Y'all, you do what you got to do. I wish you the best. I'm just not the best for you
Mm.
because conversation is so important. Communication is so important. Now, it's certain things I ain't guessing about. I'm out of here.
Yeah. I mean, it's true, but that's part of that healing process,
Hmm.
too. And to my understanding, nobody here is a therapist, so we're gonna put that disclaimer out there.
Right,
Ain't nobody diagnosing nothing or nothing. We're just talking about personal experiences or things we may have observed for other people. So we're gonna put that out there. But
right.
part of that is Moose, his one of his statements was about trying to get these boundaries in order. Well, as you try to get that, that's part of that healing process. We don't know how to talk to each other and be empathetic. And you know what? That is so true. Um, we 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 some of us do good. Some of us are not the best. And sometimes some of us only want to express or speak from our experiences of what we feel in that moment without giving the next person the opportunity to respond, or without even wanting to hear from the other person. That is so true.
Right.
Miss Miss Fredrica has been able to chime on. She's been listening. Fredrica, do you want to add anything?
Hey y'all.
Hey.
Whew, finally out of class. I do. I've been listening. It's pretty much everything y'all been saying I do agree with. Me personally, um I am currently in therapy. I believe I've mentioned that before. And one of the things that I'm working through, um, it's a lot I'm unpacking. A lot of childhood trauma, first of all, and a lot of you know, past relationship trauma. One of the things from my childhood that I'm working on is the death of my sister. Um, Letha, I don't know if you remember these. Not sure if anybody else does, but my sister was a runaway, and she was killed. They found her in Presidential Hills Park back in 2006, and that was my senior year of high school. That was literally almost 20. It'll be 20 years January the 9th of 2026. Be 20 years. And even though it's been 20 years since her death, well, almost 20 years, I still haven't gotten over that. I still haven't really dealt with her death because I deal with a lot of guilt behind it because I felt like not necessarily that I had something to do with it. I didn't, by the way, but I felt like certain things that I did she was looking at and she just kind of just took that and just kind of did her own little thing, and that's what led to her being a runaway. And so I still feel a lot of guilt behind it because I'm like, if I would have set a better example for her as her older sister, maybe she would still be here. She has three beautiful nieces now that are growing up, without knowing, one of their aunts. And it's a challenge for me because I'm like that special moment, when I found out that I was pregnant and we were having a baby shower and doing all of the things, like that was stuff that we talked about, when we were little girls. And just going through all of that, without her, it's a weird feeling, even though I know she's here spiritually. It's just weird. And it's just me still dealing with it after 20 years is hard. So that's one of the things that I'm unpacking in therapy. Also a lot of things with my dad. Didn't realize, well, I think I always realized that a lot of my relationship issues do stem from issues with my dad. Um, Not saying that he was a bad man and not saying that he was a bad father. I think my dad just he took on a lot at a very early age. He and my mom got married right out of high school. They had me about 6 weeks before they got married. They were both trying to, go to school, finish their degrees. My dad was actually playing football at Alcorn at the time, and it was just they were dealing with a lot, and that that doesn't excuse a lot of stuff that he did, but I just think that if he would have gotten therapy and learned how to deal with his trauma and learned better ways to communicate, then that would have trickled down to us as his children. Well, first it would have trickled down to my mom, his wife, and then it would have trickled down to us. And I think that as parents, sometimes we forget that whatever we're going through, if we don't deal with it, it's gonna trickle down to our kids.
Mhm.
And that's something that I'm learning how to do as a mom. I got to learn how to deal with my stuff because I realize that my energy, my vibes, things that are, going on with me can sometimes jump into my child. And I don't mean for that to happen, but sometimes it can. And it does affect our mother-daughter relationship when I don't when I don't deal with what I need to deal with the right way. I struggle to communicate because of the things that have happened in my past. And that's something that I'm working on. And our Justin mentioned, it's funny that he mentioned this because I actually went through this in the past relationship. There was a guy I dated years ago. Um, he was very bothered by the fact that I liked having, sometimes I liked having my alone time. And I can be in the same room with you and be okay that we don't talk. I can be journaling or writing a poem, and you could be, I don't know, playing your video game or doing whatever you want to do. As long as we're in the same room, we ain't got to say a word. But that bothered him to the point where he felt like I was cheating on him, which ultimately led to him, cheating on me because he felt like he was trying to get some revenge. But dude, I wasn't cheating on you. It was just that that's how I handle stuff. Like that's how I handle me. And I could have communicated that better to him so that he could understand that I'm not cheating, I'm not trying to cheat, I'm not looking to cheat. I'm just a naturally introverted person, and sometimes that's my way of recharging is just to be in my own little world, be in my own little bubble. And I could have communicated that with him. I should have, but that's a lesson that I learned. But, just going through therapy is allowing me to just unpack all of this little by little, learning how to journal more. Justin mentioned journaling and reading it out loud with my therapist, which I do a lot. And I cry a lot. And I tell her all the time, I said, I'm going to stop coming to you because you make me cry. And I don't like crying. I don't like crying, but I'm paying her good money, so I got to do something. I got to do something. She got to get her money's worth out of me. So, but it really is cleansing to the soul to get those emotions out because I didn't realize I've been holding in so much sadness, so much pain and anger and frustration and confusion. I've been holding all of this for years since I was like 5 years old. And it's like, it's time to unpack all that. Because if you truly want a husband and you want that relationship to be happy and truly healthy, you got to unpack all this baggage. You got to unpack it. You got to unpack it and leave it where it's at. So that's just my take on it. So just go to therapy. I'm saying therapy works. It's nothing wrong with going to therapy, therapy and prayer. You can do both, despite what some people may think. Some people think you just need Jesus. We do. We need Jesus. But I also need a therapist. I also need somebody to talk to. I need somebody to give me a bring me back to reality. Don't have me thinking that I'm right because I know that I'm not always right. I don't need somebody that's going to agree with me 24/7. Put me in my place, please. Let
Mhm.
me know when I'm right. Let me know when I'm wrong, and help me find some type of middle ground when it comes to my mental and emotional well-being.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's just my take.
Well, Moose says thank you for that, and then I think we all laughed when you mentioned about you gonna stop going because she make you cry, but you got to get your money's worth, and we do commend
Yeah,
you for
yeah,
sharing that because given a portion of our journeys. I'm a believer it'll help somebody, even if it's just this circle on this on here right now. And you know, I'm not a therapist. Some wounds never go completely healed. So you're coping. You're learning how to cope. And you're gonna continue to have your good days and your bad days. But you sharing that it is you open up such a very sentimental spot in your life to us, and I don't think anyone here takes that kindly. So we do thank you for that, especially, you know, considering the situation on top of in this world we in with the news and social media, when you see things, it doesn't make certain stuff any better, you know. So uh, uh, we're present in this moment right here, right now with you. So yeah, yeah. So you kind of it was it was it was needed. Um, and it was on time. So we thank
Yeah.
you. Now we have, before we get back to Fredrica and Justin, we have Caden, Cadian. I don't know if you want to say anything, if you want to give any insight. If so, we don't want to like dismiss you because you're here. If not, that's fine. Okay. If you want to say something, you can comment in the comment section. Um, tonight's topic was suggested from Miss Frederica. And and what I have discovered um is the importance of therapy, even though, I know, but it's a reminder I may need to get back started. What I've also discovered is and I'm discovering more and more, even with these grown, I'm trying not to be sarcastic or condescending, so I'm gonna say it the right way, a pleasant way. Even with these grown young adults, see, I get an E for effort, that still have to be careful how things are said or what is said, because I grew up in an era where you just suck it up and keep going. Um, and I'm not pointing a finger at anybody, right? And that was never a good place for me. It was just never a good place for me, right? So I had a few people I could confide in, but I still find myself phrasing certain things and then after the fact feeling bad about what I said, because you can pay attention enough to people and see what you say can affect other people. And I'm just talking about my personal discoveries tonight. Also, that is so true. Moose says we push those traumas down until they had nowhere to go but up. and out of us bleeding on others. And that's so true. It's just so true. You know what I've also discovered, even recently. I'm not going to go into much details. Um, it's having a conversation with somebody dear to me, and they said some things, and they was just getting some of their hurt off of their chest. I've been struggling with this for a little minute because I'm learning not to always have something to say because I'm bad about that. And then when I start speaking, sometimes I can't stop. So I've been working on just, right? So it was some things said that truly bothered me because it was said about somebody I truly love. And and in that moment, and in this moment has reminded me that just as well as I could say something to mess with somebody, regardless of my age, it could be done to me too. No matter how well in the brain you think you are, how is just to say, you're divine. I love the Lord. I pray every night. I've been on the Lord's Prayer strong for over a year now. When I can't pray nothing else, that's all I've been praying, that and prayer protection. That's them two things I can kind of, that just come to me. But when something was said to me and somebody expressed it and they was just talking, they wasn't trying to upset me. I don't even think they thought they upset me because all I did was sit there and listen. And I wanted to say something, but I'm like, if I say what I want to say, it's not going to do nothing but start some chaos because they're expressing their self and taking a moment, sharing their feelings and something that's been bothering them for a while. And now I got to be bothered with something been bothering you for a while. Because I can't say what I want to say because I got my own personal opinion about some things. So it's good to be in a space with people who understand the importance of dealing or not dealing, and who understand the importance of, even when it's hard, just to mention it too, it can be hard. And Moose, I thank you because it was hard. Oh, it was so hard. It was hard, hard, hard. And yet I have not repeated it to anybody. Because if I repeat what was said, so it's good to be in a space with people. This is almost like a support group with people who understand that no, we're not therapists, but everybody here understands the struggle enough to understand that it's not easy, enough to understand that self-awareness matters, but so does being conscientious of other people, even when you don't want to be conscientious, to be able to take that and do that. So for anybody, because the last part of it is building relationships. My suggestion to anybody, whatever type of relationship it is that you plan on building with people, you got to work from right here first. And some of this stuff has a lot to do with forgiveness. Some of this stuff got a lot to do with forgiveness. We can carry so much malice in our heart, and forgive don't mean forget. It doesn't mean that. But a lot of this purging, in my opinion, we need to work on some forgiveness. And I think first, I learned back in 2014, 2015, I had to start forgiving myself first. I just had to. I can't erase my flaws or my mishaps or whatever. You know, I had to literally start forgiving myself. And then once I started doing that, it felt like the attacks kept coming and coming and coming. Then I learned that in attacks coming, I can't retaliate because I'm still working on me. And so when you are in a space where people understand, trauma is not a made up thing. Trauma is not a nobody seeking attention thing. Trauma is not a, oh, this person trying to get it their way thing. It's a true thing. People struggle. And people do want to be better because whatever road they take in life, whether it's a job, whether it's whatever, whether it's an intimate role for a husband or a wife or whatever it is, people truly deal with themselves so they can be better, so they don't, it's just and say bleed on other people who haven't, you know, done it anyway. So I mean, I thank you deeper than you realize for sharing it to with us, and I thank everybody for being here because this space is not possible without any of you all here. Um, it's just not a possible space without any of you here. Um, Justin, do you have anything else to add?
I guess all I would say is, I appreciate Fredrica for being so courageously vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
sharing love. Um, but that's what it requires. It requires you to acknowledge some things about yourself. Some things you're not going to change about yourself. Some things she loves to take some time and be with herself, and anybody she has to find somebody um that's okay with that. You know what I'm saying? And again, he may be able to be okay with that, but perhaps there's something in him or an experience that he had that made him not okay with that. There was a time I wouldn't have been okay with that. I would have been knowing, hey, what's going on? Why are you not talking to me? I would have felt like I've done something wrong. I've learned that early childhood trauma made me a people pleaser. And then being a people pleaser for so long, there was a certain need for me to please in order to feel like I've done something that made me worthy of attention and time. And so when I'm doing things that I feel like make me worthy of attention and time and I'm not getting it, it feels like I'm being done wrong. And that can manifest itself in thinking somebody else is cheating or be dealing with somebody else. And the reality is your person just sitting there spending time with themselves. And everybody need time with self. You know what I'm saying? But when you're dealing with trauma, self is the last person you want to deal with. So you become overly helpful and overly codependent on somebody else's existence, and it takes time to get past that. But she's taking the steps, and anybody that takes the steps and pray. I do want to say this because I know this gonna go on the radio. Uh, God, there are God fearing, Jesus loving therapists out there. There are, and so you're not doing something wrong by talking to a God fearing, Jesus loving therapist. They're gonna hear you out. They're gonna understand your position. They're gonna squeeze Jesus in there because it don't take a whole lot. A little leaving a whole lump, and they're gonna help you process your way through those things. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with getting help. It's only wrong if you don't get help for it. So that's what I'll say. I appreciate you for allowing me to be in this space and have something uh, to say.
Well, I thank you all. Fredrica, did you want to add anything else?
Um, just that, well, I agree with everything Justin just said, but um, just also just being able to communicate, where you are in your journey to the people that you're closest to. Because some people, like I said before, may take you isolating as a negative thing because they feel like, oh, why are you withdrawing? Did I do something wrong? Or, what's going on? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? You know, just being able to communicate where you are, just say, hey, I got a lot on my mind, or hey, I'm going through this, or I'm trying to sort through this and I just kind of need some alone time. Just communicate where you are with the people that are around you. If you don't feel like being bothered, just say, hey, give me a minute. I need some me time. Give me about an hour. Give me about two. Go somewhere and sit down in the corner somewhere. Leave me alone. Leave me alone for a minute. And I say that because sometimes I have to do that with my daughter. I have to tell her, I understand you got a lot to say, but mommy needs some time. Just give me about 30 minutes and then we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Like I just need some time to, kind of get in that space where I can be open for whatever it is that she's trying to throw my way, you know?
Mhm.
So just communicate. You can
Mhm.
learn how to communicate where you are in
Mhm.
your journey. Don't be afraid to go to therapy. I know that that's something that is still taboo in the African American community. I don't know why Black folks just don't like to go to therapy. Just what's wrong with it? You need to talk to somebody. You can't sit up here and talk to Betty, Sue, and Jane and Paul, Mike, and John 24/7 because guess what they're going to do? They're going to keep feeding into whatever it is that you're trying to deal with. They're not really helping you. They're allowing you to vent and to be all up in your business because get what they're going to do? Go back and spread it to the whole neighborhood. Go back and tell everybody else, and you wonder why everybody in your business, and you wonder why you can't get over stuff. But
Mhm.
anyway, that's a whole, I ain't gonna get into all that. That's a whole nother episode. Um, but go to therapy. Find if you don't find Jesus, find some type of religion or whatever, some type of spirituality to help center you at your core. Because
Mhm.
your spirit needs to be centered in something.
Mhm.
Whether it's Jesus or whatever religion you
Mhm.
decide. But
Mhm.
your spirit needs to be centered in something. And it can be centered in something and you can go to therapy too. Again, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. You can do
Mhm.
both. Despite
Mhm.
what everybody keeps saying, you can do both. You need
Most
both.
definitely.
Um,
Definitely. Most definitely.
oh yeah. And like I said, communication and also be gentle with yourself
Mhm.
because you're human. Allow yourself to feel whatever emotions you need to feel in order to heal your inner child.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I'm learning. Allow yourself to feel the emotions, whether it's sadness, whether it's anger, frustration, confusion, whatever it is, allow yourself to feel it in that moment. Why am I feeling this way? What triggered me to feel this way? Why did it trigger me? You know, allow yourself to feel those emotions and go through that process so that you can really and truly deal with it. So once you really and truly deal with it and you like, okay, well, I know why this and I know why that. I know why this triggered me because so and so said this and that triggered me to this little episode when I was 10, when such and such did this or such and such said that. Learn how to deal with that. Learn how to deal with it. Why is that? Why does that situation that happened when you were 10 years old, why does that still bother you when you in your 30s and 40s? Why is that still bothering you? That shouldn't even bother you no more. But it still does. It triggers you for some reason, and you need to deal with that. So
Mm-hmm.
just allow yourself to feel those emotions so that you can heal and just be a better person for not only yourself, but just the people around you, your kids, your family, your loved ones, and even your coworkers. Because what I realize is that sometimes my coworkers can say or do something and they trigger me, and I have to catch myself and be like, "Oh Jesus, let me step to the back. Let me go to the break room and have a hallelujah moment with Jesus right now." Cause listen, child, you about to take me there. I'm like, let me just step away for a second. I did. I had one of those earlier today, Letha. I'm not even gonna lie. I had to go talk to Jesus. Talk to Jesus before your child gets sent to you.
It happens.
Like, and I had to realize that her saying that to me, I had an issue that it didn't have nothing to do with her. But because she said what she said, it triggered something in me that I didn't realize that I had
Mm-hmm.
not dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't her. It wasn't her. Even though she said those same exact words, it wasn't her. It was just me. I need to work on me.
Mm-hmm.
So so that when people say certain things, it doesn't trigger anything in me. I can just be like, okay, cool, whatever. Have a blessed day. Go on with your life, and I'm gonna go on with mine. You know. Um. So yeah, definitely learn how to communicate with the people that are around you. Allow yourself to process your feelings completely from beginning to end. Recognize why you're feeling what you're feeling, and address it. Whether you address it in a positive way. Get you a journal, write a poem, write a song, write a short story, write a play, do something constructive with it. Get you some paint and paint or a stencil and draw. Do something constructive and artistic with your emotions. You
Mm-hmm.
feel a lot better for it. And yeah, therapy and Jesus, they're gonna be your best friends. And that's all I have to say, y'all.
Appreciate you all. I'm gonna go on a whim and yeah, grounding and tree hugging helps. I would tell somebody to go outside and hug a tree in a minute and drink some water. I tell them to drink water and I tell them to catch some breaths, catch some air, let some oxygen get to your head. Drink, drink some water. Over here on my water, drink some water and just breathing, because I believe water helps anxiety too. So I do thank you all for being here. I really do. I'm grateful for you all. Without you all, this space would not be possible. I do want to give a special shout out to Moose because he is back again. And so I will go on a whim, and he doesn't have to say anything right now. But whoever is connected to Moose, I'm going to suggest that you add him in our group chat on messaging. And the reason why I'm saying that is any topics, suggestions, we want to be able to address those topics. And he was very well versed last time. Enjoyed speaking to him. And so would love to know, hey, XYZ. Okay. Um, we will have a date for the round table soon. I'm not gonna choose the date. I'm gonna let the date be chosen between Justin and Fredrica. And I got one possibility of a young lady. Somebody shared her stuff in a group. And she did reach out to me and she did inquire what are the dates. I just, told her we working on getting some dates together. But whether somebody is there or not, I'm a firm believer. You just still move forward no matter what. We want to give a special shout out to Lex Luger, the Backwood Ambassador, and the Hood Idol Radio b- station because that is the platform, the radio platform, the first radio. Look, we're gonna claim it's the first, but not the only, right? It's gonna be the first radio platform that we will be on. And he's only been doing what he's been doing for over 20 years. Does a lot. So he's gonna help us tremendously. So we just want to give that shout out. Um, Frederica, you need to, if you don't mind, you need to give them your page. Justin, give them your page. Um, and we are officially live. So it took to the YouTube. So that's what I've been sitting down here doing at my phone, like looking and stuff. So we're officially live on YouTube right now. Um, officially. It decided it wanted to work tonight, right? So yeah, but before it goes on the radio, it will still be edited for radio. But I thought I messed up. So when I X'd out of it, Justin, it was still going. That's what I've been like. I shared it on my Facebook page and tagged y'all in it. Like we're literally live. I've been texting it to people. See, I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna be mildly nice, but I've been texting it to folks that I told they need to be chiming in. But it's okay. It's okay. But I want you all to let people know your platforms and all of that. And I don't know who closed out last time. Was it Moose? It was Moose. I think it was
Yes,
Moose.
it was Moose.
Okay, it wasn't me. So, um, yeah. So Frederica and Justin get to decide who go first and whoever go last. Y'all gonna say until next time, and that's when I'm gonna hit the end button. I'm done.
I go first. Um, Author Justin Wilson on Facebook, author Justin Wilson on Instagram, also Justin Wilson on Facebook, and Justin will make it on Instagram. I spend most of my time on TikTok, where's AJW the Poet. And you can come and follow me. I go live on Sundays at 6 p.m. It'll be 5 p.m. for anybody in the SIP or in that area. And yeah, we have conversations that are centered around the poems that some are in the book, some will be in the next book. Some of them I just write about different things. Last Sunday just passed, the piece that I read was talking about self-unaliving because September is self-unaliving prevention awareness month. And I wanted to put something out there that lets people who experience those type of thoughts know that they're not alone, that they can get through them. With a lot of prayer and a lot of therapy, you can get through it. And then with a support system, and I try my best along with the rest of my support system, people like Moose and Kadian. Those are people who are in my support system and in my circle, and we do our best to be a support to each other and whoever else needs the support. And you know what I'm saying? Like I ain't no millionaire, nothing like that. I get up and go to work every day, but I can be a kind word. And if I do have the money to, help somebody get something to eat or something like that, I definitely don't mind doing it when I can. But I'm a regular human being like everybody else. So sometimes I got it, sometimes I don't. So yeah, thank you.
All right. I'm mostly spend a lot of my time on Facebook. Just go by Fredrica Sandifer. I also have a page on there called Honestly Me by Fredrica. That's where I kind of put a lot of encouraging things, and I also kind of share my journey with dealing with anxiety and depression on there as well. Um, I'm on Instagram, but I'm locked out of my page. My Instagram is Queen Taurus 27. And I also have well, I guess you could say a non-profit organization, um, the Murrah High School Sound of Perfection Band. So I support them a lot. So you'll see me talking about the band a lot sometimes, on my Facebook page and different things like that. Um, so yeah, I just appreciate all of this. I appreciate Letha for extending this opportunity to be a part of this. It is growing, and I do appreciate the opportunity. So you guys, let's just support each other and continue to uplift each other and keep each other encouraged, motivated, and inspired. And again, Jesus in therapy gonna be your best friend. Add them to your circle. That's all I got to say. Letha, I love you. Y'all have a good night. Be blessed. Continue to be productive. See y'all next time.